It's my first night on the job. I'd like to welcome everybody this evening and call this meeting to order at 6:07. Our first order of business will be to approve the June 12th Selectmen's meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
You weren't there.
Oh, sorry. I'm an abstention.
Stuart wasn't there. And the June 28th.
That's the one.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Item number 4, public forum. If there's anybody who'd like to come and speak before this committee tonight with any information that is not on tonight's agenda, I welcome you to do so now. Seeing none. Number 5, consider a renewal liquor license application submitted by Captain Jeffords Inn LLC DBA Captain Jeffords Inn, 5 Pearl Street.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? So moved. Okay, number 6. Consider special amusement permit application submitted by Sandy Pines Campground, Sandy Pines LLC at 277 Mills Road. And this is a new application.
So, can I speak?
Absolutely, Lori.
So we have before us Sandy Pines. They recently went through a lengthy planning board process to determine what activities could occur out there. And Werner is here, he can certainly answer any questions. They were given the ability to have movie night and I believe music out there at the campground. But we have representatives here who could maybe speak to what kind of activities they plan to do under the special amusement permit and what time periods, if any.
Ralph, if you'd like to speak, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. For the record, Ralph Austin, representing Sandy Pines Campground. And as Laurie explained, there was a lengthy planning board process in approving changes to the campground, but setting certain parameters and conditions. And in regard to music, one of the conditions, and let me just find that. Sandy Pines shall allow no electronically amplified music, for example, bands, karaoke, disc jockeys, from hosted activities and events after 10 p.m. was the condition. What Sandy Pines is proposing is typically on a Saturday afternoon, might occasionally be on a Sunday, but usually it's Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4, a small group around the pool. As they explained to me, it can, with their budget, can only be 2 or 3 musicians. It's usually guitar, a vocalist, and they usually run 2 to 4, 2 to 5. They might run a little later, but their goal is to have a quiet campground in the evening to not disturb campers, and certainly not to disturb abutters. So it would never be in the evening, and certainly have to follow the planning board conditions anyway.
And I believe, for the record, they were allowed amplified music, and they would have to be completed by 10 a.m. But it sounds like 10 p.m. Thank you. But it sounds like you're going to be well within those parameters.
Correct.
Thank you, Ralph.
I would move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? So moved. Number 7. We have proposed ordinance changes for the November town meeting ballot. Number A would be vitriol's ordinance. Lori, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, you have before you a vitriol's license ordinancing amendment, and you'll remember earlier this year that we had a business that did not sign up for the vitriol's ordinance in May, and the question arose as to what would our enforcement action be if someone did not renew their vitriol's application. So these were amendments proposed by staff that would clarify what our action would be, and it's really on page 2 under section 5. And it states that if you you had a failure to submit your annual renewal application, it would be punishable by a fine of $100 for the first offense and $200 for the second and subsequent violation.
And so let me just be clear that I understand that. So on day 1, It's the $100. On day 2, it's a separate offense. Does that mean it's $200 on day 2?
I think what would happen is you would have to get a second violation, you would have to be reminded again.
I see.
So it'd just be a one-time $100
It would
fine.
be a 100 until you didn't do it for the second time. Of course, it has language that's similar. Each day that such unlawful act or violation continues to be a separate offense. I mean, that's similar to other language that we have in other enforcement. Of course, it would be within the selectman's realm in terms of the enforcement action.
Okay.
But our intent is always to get voluntary compliance.
Excellent.
And we also have a new telecommunications ordinance to review, or an amended telecommunications ordinance.
And Werner is here and will speak to that.
Good evening. So what you have in front of you are a number of proposed amendments within the wireless telecommunications ordinance. This ordinance was initially written and passed in, I believe, 1999. So there's certainly been a fair number of changes in technology and law related to wireless telecommunications since then. The language that you see in here now, in terms of what's being proposed, came forward from Verizon Wireless, looking to install a number of small cellular nodes. These are small-scale, essentially data boosters that would be placed on top of existing utility poles.
That's what Scott Anderson was
That's
pitching.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
Scott
okay.
Anderson was here
Gotcha.
and spoke with you all a while back
Got
about
it.
that. So, this the current draft that you have in front of you would allow for those types of nodes to be installed, just to deal with with the uptick in data demands. I will say that you'll probably see a little bit more in terms of revisions to this ordinance, since this is a draft. Currently, Town Council has it. I also asked them to look this over in terms of, were there any other amendments that we needed to make just to make sure that we were compliant with the Spectrum Act, since it had been such a long time since anything had been done with this ordinance. So I suspect that I'll have any other amendment suggestions from them probably by the end of next week. So,
Fantastic.
Thank you, Warner. Okay, moving on to number 8, discussion of medical marijuana storefront moratorium. Laurie?
I'm going to have Werner come up on this as well, to explain where we are with the current statute regarding medical marijuana.
So one of the things that we know is that the rules that surround medical and recreational marijuana in the state of Maine are in somewhat of a state of flux. And one of the things that municipalities are starting to see throughout the state is that there's been a change in recent rules that have given a pretty dramatic boost to the medical side of the cannabis industry. And this particular, and some of these rules and these practices involve what's referred to as patient cycling, and really what happens here is that medical caregivers are allowed to essentially have 5 patients. Many of them, what they're doing, or they're cycling that 5th patient to where they're operating out of a storefront. Anybody who comes in who has a valid medical marijuana card can become a patient for the duration of the sale, and then as they leave, they're no longer a patient. The next person that comes in becomes that 5th cycling patient again. So, so we're starting to see this throughout the state, that medical caregivers are essentially moving into storefronts and operating a medical marijuana facility,
But
but
on
the
a
public,
retail
but
basis.
the public
A
on a retail
dispensary.
basis. That's right. Yeah, it's somewhat of a what many of
Loophole.
us think is a workaround. The dispensary law, and the state has more or less taken a position that they're allowing this. So, so what this moratorium does is it essentially it formally puts on notice that that we're not accepting applications. You know, if anyone were to come in and were to attempt to put in a retail medical marijuana retail storefront, you know, with this moratorium in place, it would give us the legal authority to not allow that. And in the meantime, it gives the town the time frame in which to have a discussion about whether or not we want to allow for medical marijuana storefronts in town.
So would that moratorium go until November voting?
We would set the date on here, but I believe it's
So
180 days.
moratoriums are by statute 180 days in nature, and they take effect when you vote for them.
Okay.
The state, there are two LDs that have recently come forward. They passed at the legislature. The governor overturned them, or vetoed them, I should say, last week. At the beginning of this week, the legislature came back and overturned the veto. So they will go into effect, and those new laws will require that municipalities opt in. Right now, we have to say we want to prohibit it. It's assumed it's okay unless we prohibit it. In the future, it will be assumed it's prohibited unless you opt in. But that new law does not take effect until October 3rd. So between now and October 3rd, someone could submit an application. And it's not that we have someone lined up, but there is that possibility. And if we had a moratorium, we could certainly make it retroactive. You could have a special town meeting, if you so chose, to enact a moratorium sooner, or you could wait for the November election. Or we could line ourselves up for the November election with the understanding that we've put on record that our plan is to have a moratorium. And so the question is, why would we have a moratorium? And I think, just like with recreational marijuana, we would want to look at what zones we would allow these storefronts to be in, whether we would want to regulate the retail sale, put them through a permitting process to make sure we deal with issues like we do with other site plan issues. And also whether we would want to make it retroactive, so meaning to today's date, essentially. And so we're looking for direction from the board about how you feel about this and what action you would like to take and what issues are important to you.
I think that we should have a moratorium. That's my opinion on this until we get some more
Didn't we
information and
already
everything else.
decide on that?
We decided
Retail.
on recreational marijuana.
Okay,
That did
all right.
not include medical.
medical.
And these new
Okay.
changes in the recreational marijuana law that the state did really brought in medical marijuana and made some changes there as well. So we had no jurisdiction over medical marijuana in the past. Now the question is, if someone wants a retail establishment as a caregiver, that could happen.
So basically, they could rent a place down in Dock Square.
Yeah.
Yes.
What language do you need in order to frame a moratorium so that it accomplishes what we've just laid out?
I think we would just need you to direct us to move forward with that. You would need to tell us if you want to wait till November or have a special election prior to that. I think we need to hear that what your concerns are relative. Is it about the zoning, about the looking at regulation, and whether or not this would be retroactive in your mind to today? So meaning if someone put in an application prior to the moratorium taking effect, that you would consider it under the moratorium.
Do we need to take action to set this control date for today?
I think as long as you say that it would be retroactive,
I'd like to
yes.
see us take a vote, at least to set the control date to July 12th.
It's fine with me.
Do you have a motion?
That's a motion.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? The government likes control dates, we might as well have one.
Huh.
I think we already had talked that we don't want it here anyway.
Well, yes, and that's ultimately, I think the voters spoke pretty clearly in the last cycle that we had when we brought this to them for recreational.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'd like to have an opportunity at this again. All right, number 9.
So do
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
want a moratorium though?
Yes.
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 And so what about, do we wanna wait till November or do a special election?
Do you have concerns that if we put the retroactive date to today, that the 180 days may not be enough time? Or do you think that if we set the date to today, the 180 days won't lapse before it's necessary?
So what would happen is the 180 days don't start ticking until you have legislative vote.
Okay, so all right.
So what we're going forward with is public,
demonstrated
our
intent.
public, right,
Right.
recognition
Yes.
that we plan to go forward with a moratorium, make it retroactive. If someone puts an application in between now and then, that's a battle we would need to discuss with them.
Got it.
I think we should take it right till November.
Yeah.
We don't need
Yeah.
a special.
I don't
think
believe
it's
so.
much now.
So we'll put it on the November ballot then.
Excellent.
Does that give you everything you need for
Yep.
this?
Okay, moving on. Number 9, request to waive tent permit fee for Circus Schmirkus.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
That may seem quick to people listening who aren't aware of it, but this is something that happens every year.
Yes.
It's a great event. It's a charitable event, and it's one that we've always strongly endorsed and favored. So
And it
wasn't-
supports our schools.
Yes, it
correct.
does. PTA, correct? All right, and probably the same with number 10. Consider request from the Rotary Club to rename Dock Square to Duck Square for one day on August 11th for the Duck Race and River Fest event.
So moved.
What? Wait a minute, he has
Oh,
a
sure.
comment.
Nope.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Dave James, a resident of Kennebunkport. I'm a big supporter of the Rotary Club, and I'm also a big supporter, and I buy lots of ducks for the duck race. But somehow or other, I think it's kind of demeaning for one day to rename Dock Square Duck Square. And I really don't see how that is going to help increase the amount of revenue the Rotary Club may generate by selling ducks. So it just seems to me a little bit demeaning and a little bit too commercialization of that event at the expense of the reputation of our town and the reputation of Dock Square. So, personal opinion.
Thank you, David.
Point well taken.
I think our reputation can take it, but
I do too.
I think, we gotta show we do have some sort of a sense of humor and
Humor.
levity around here, but
I moved it.
Was that?
do I hear a second?
Second.
In favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? All right. Number 11, consider request for fire department to purchase 8 sets of protecting clothing. Jay, you're up.
Good evening. This is a annual type expenditure that we do. We are on a rotating basis of turning over our turnout gear. It's really only good for 10 years or so, and this is just a regular normal thing. It's a little bit more than what was budgeted, but there was some reserve money from years past. Because what I did was I did add to the turnout gear. I went with a different outer shell and a different vapor barrier. And what the vapor barrier does for the firefighters is it helps keep them cool. It's actually lighter. It moves more with the firefighter. So it's really a better product. And again, it comes with a little bit of a price than what we were paying, but it's actually only ends up being about $71 a set because I got rid of something else. We were buying big class 2 harnesses that go around the firefighters' waists and their legs. They can rappel off it, they can do these things, and instead went with a simple belt, so there's less labor and there's not buying the harness. You're buying the belt instead, which is cheaper, and there's not the labor of putting all the loops that need to hold that harness in place on the gear. And what I've found in my other life, we use for a while the same type of harnesses, and they actually wear the gear out a little faster. So that was another reason for moving away from them. But as you can see from your handout, that we spend about $2,270 per set. It's not cheap, but it's not cheap even for stuff that doesn't breathe well or fit well. These are sized to the firefighter that they're going to.
So the only issue on this too is the selectmen would need to motion to allow them to do a sole source, as they're purchasing globe turnout gear and there is only one vendor for the state of Maine. And that's where we've been purchasing it, but that needs authorization from the board.
I think there was a letter that was in the packet as well from Globe that they are the only game in town.
Yep, right here.
I would move to approve the request for the purchase of 8 sets of gear at $18,155.52.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Thank you very much.
So moved.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jay. Okay, moving on. Appoint boards and committees. All right. I think some of this stuff that I have is misnumbered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I changed it.
So let me go with my original here. And hopefully I don't butcher anybody's name, and I apologize in advance for doing so. Starting off with administrative code. Members are Wayne Adams, Stedman Seavey, Dick Smith, Mike Weston, and April Dufault. And they're all served one-year terms, so we can move this as one slate.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Congratulations to those folks. Okay. Board of Assessment Review. Well, we have no appointments. We have 2 vacancies, but no appointments. All right, Cape Porpoise Peer Committee. These, again, all,
1 year.
yes, thank you, Sheila. We have Peter Eaton, Peter Garso, Arnold Nickerson IV, Ben Noonan, John Noonan, Bob O'Reilly, Sandy Talmadge, and Eric Wiles.
Now, because there's no response, do we even mention him?
I was reappointed to it and never made a response before. If he doesn't want to, he won't.
He has traditionally been on it.
Okay.
Yes, oh yes.
All right.
Believe me, he would be very upset if we didn't nominate him.
So moved.
Second.
And
All-
these are one-year terms.
Yes, all in favor? So moved. Congratulations to those. Cemetery Committee, Linda Bryant, Ruth Fernandez, Greg Pergalis, Ann Sanders, and Rita Schlegel. And these are all, again, one-year terms.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So here we get to Conservation Commission, and these are not one-year terms. So the terms that are going to expire are Joe Frank, Sarah LaChance, Gil Page, and we have an application from Amy, and I know I'm gonna wreck this, Valchos. She's not here, okay. And those terms would expire, actually, Arlene, I have different dates here. I have some terms expiring in 20.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
new term. Your
okay,
new term.
all right.
There you go.
So for the new terms, they all expire this year. So for Joe Frank and Gil Page, those terms will expire in 2021. So can we move those?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. And for Sarah LaChance and Amy Valchos, those terms will expire in 2020. A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Congratulations. Okay, and Government Wharf. These are all one-year terms. We have Jeff Davis, Ron Francor, Thomas Mansfield, Chris Welch, Alan Daggett.
And we have a new one of
Yep,
Andrew Welch.
And Andrew Welch.
And, he indicated multiple choices. Is he interested in serving on multiple committees, or is there, okay. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Yeah, we're gonna use him there and somebody else on another committee,
Gotcha.
since we have a plethora of volunteers this evening.
Gotcha.
Okay, so growth planning. We have Dan Saunders, Paul Hogan. Their terms will expire in 2021. So if I could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Jim McMahon is an alternate, and we want to move him to full-time, and I believe he will expire, well,
Next
he
year.
will expire next year, because that's his alternate term, so, we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? And correct me, did we not have another one? I don't have it written down here.
Yes, so for we now have 2 alternate positions, and Andrew Welch has volunteered for that, and Michael Corsi is a new volunteer
For alternates.
for alternates. They would both be alternates. We were suggesting Andrew Welch would have an expiring term of 2020, and Michael Corsi of 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, Janet Powell. I
What's that?
apologize.
Strike that from the record.
I withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we had another one as well. So we have Janet Powell,
Yeah.
Andrew Welch, and Michael Corsi, who all are interested in growth planning. And we have 2 alternate openings.
Okay, so we've already appointed Andrew to Government Wharf.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we should,
Do the other 2?
yeah, Janet and.
And Michael
and Michael.
Corsi.
Yes.
Okay.
Janet's here, she gets the nod. Well, thank you so much for volunteering.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
So Michael is gonna have 2019, and
And,
Janet will have a
20.
2020. So we can keep the staggering of the
Yes.
terms.
Um,
Okay, that's done.
Yep, and Kennebunk River Committee, the only term I have that expires is Rich Woodman with a new term of 2020, or excuse me, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Parsons Way Committee, Gordon Ayer said he would like to be reappointed with a term of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And Planning Board, and I see Thomas Boak is here tonight, thank you, Tom, with a term of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Congratulations. All right, Public Safety Committee, Jay Everett, Michael Claus, Craig Sanford, Joseph Carroll, and these are all one-year terms as well, so these would expire in 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? The ayes have it. Sewer Advisory Committee, Bob Coventry, Stephen Couture, Richard Johnson, Joseph Martin Mead, and these are all one-year terms.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Shade Tree Committee, Sarah Adams, Stephen Doe, Kim Gursky, Nina Perlmutter, and John Ripton. And these are all terms that expire in 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you to them. Sidewalk Committee, Kristen Garvin, Michael Claus, and Craig Sanford, all one-year terms.
So moved.
Second.
So moved, and congratulations.
All in favor?
Oh, yes, what's that?
We
ZBA?
just moved something.
Oh, did we miss CBA?
No, this one, we didn't vote on it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
You seconded
did.
it, but you didn't say,
I did, but maybe I muttered it. Yes, all in favor?
just for the record.
Thank you. Okay, it's my first day on the job.
I know.
Okay, and last but not least, ZBA, Paul Cadigan, and his term would expire in 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Oh, and then we get to our favorite here, Selectmen. So, committees, Cape Porpoise Pier Committee. I have myself, Edward Hutchins, Goose Rocks Beach Advisory. We need somebody for that. Do I have any volunteers?
The problem with me being on the Goose Rocks Advisory is their meetings are on Monday, and I am in Massachusetts on Mondays.
Can I come?
To Massachusetts, sure.
All right, I'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuart, Barwise, penciled right in there. Government Wharf would be Alan Daggett. Graves Library Board would be myself. Growth Planning Committee, Alan Daggett. Investment Committee would be Alan Daggett and Patrick Briggs. Chems is Pat Briggs. Planning Board, Pat Briggs. I see a trend here. Public Safety Committee, Pat Briggs. SMRPC.
Southern Maine Regional
Yeah,
Planning
that.
Commission.
Stuart Barwise, Shade Tree Committee, Sheila Matthews Bull, and ZBA, Sheila Matthews Bull. I'd move those, would you like to move those as a
How'd you
slate?
get away with just one last year?
That's why,
I stayed quiet during this
Yeah.
He
process.
didn't miss any
And I
meetings,
didn't
that's
get,
why.
I didn't
Yeah.
get elbowed by 3 people. So moved. Did we move?
do I have a,
Second?
Thank you.
Second,
all in favor? So moved.
thank you.
Okay. And number 14, accept a $2,500 donation from Sandy Pines LLC for clean water testing.
So moved with appreciation.
Second,
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Other business, MMA Legislative Policy Committee ballot. Lori?
So we are voting for our District 32 representative, and there are 2 people who are running for the office. One is Lori Smith, and the other is George Donovan, who is selectman from town of Alfred.
Do we have to fill that out now, or?
Or
You-
could we instruct you to complete it?
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't feel right signing off on it. But
Who's
yes,
that
we
other
have
candidate
the,
again?
George Donovan. So,
If you need help spelling the name.
Yeah,
the selectmen have to sign off on it.
okay.
It is the town's vote.
I vote that we go with Laurie.
Me too.
You wanna do it?
That was a
Yeah.
second.
Oh, okay.
I volunteered because, last time no one did.
Okay.
And
All right.
so now we have Alfred, has a rep and I'm a rep. And as long as the district is represented, I'm in good stead.
Excellent. Okay, so I have a motion and a second to nominate Laurie for the position. All those in favor? The ayes have it. We need to sign the treasurer's warrants.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? All right.
Can I
before-
give you one other?
One
Yeah, I
other-
suppose.
So I'm passing you down letters that are going out in the mail today. As you know, we are going to the planning board as we are looking to get approval for the sledding hill on the property next to Parsons Field. And we've been working with the RSU on that. One thought as we've gone through the process is that perhaps it could be also the berms that would help with the sledding could help be for biking in the summertime. And they have these pump bikes that I'm not participating in. But, kids pump them up and down the little berms. So we are inviting the neighbors, and that letter went out to the neighbors for next Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock to meet out there before the planning board meeting to answer any questions and talk to them about the project.
Let's hope it goes better than the charrette.
Yeah, so we just thought we would let you all know.
Yes. Okay, before we go into executive session, Alan, do you have anything?
I'm all set, thank you.
Stu?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Sheila?
no,
Lori, do you have anything?
I don't
before we
have
go?
anything else.
All right, and I would just like to say thank you again for entrusting me with this committee for a whole year. I hope I live up to your expectations.
I'm
And
sure you will.
I'm sure if I don't, they'll run me out of town.
You will, or you'll
Yes,
hear
they
about
will.
it.
Number 17, executive session pursuant to MRSA 1, paragraph 405 subsection 6D to discuss union negotiations.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Okay, we're in executive session.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll do that pretty well.
Thank you very much.
Gets easier.
You guys had an earlier executive session. Is
We
there
did.
Any information as to what